The unexpected encounter. Admiral Max Davis stood at the command center of the flagship Victory. His eyes stared out the massive window that overlooked the dark, endless void of space. For days, the human fleet had been traveling through an unknown sector, following strange energy signals that had appeared on their scanners. No one knew what they were dealing with, but Max had a gut feeling that this mission was about to take a turn no one could have expected. The Victory was one of the newest ships in the human fleet, sleek, powerful, and equipped with the latest technology. But even with its cutting-edge systems, it was still a fraction of the size of the ships that made up the Galactic Empire's mighty fleet. Max knew that if they encountered the Empire, it could be the end for them. The Empire was ruthless, feared across the galaxy for its unmatched power and cold efficiency. Yet, here they were, chasing energy signals into unknown space, on the verge of something big. His second-in-command, Commander Elena Hayes, stood beside him, her arms folded. "Admiral, the energy readings are coming from a star system not far from here. We should proceed with caution. There's no telling what we might find." Max nodded, but there was something in his gut telling him they were on the verge of a discovery that could change everything. "Keep the fleet alert, Commander. I don't trust it, but we can't turn back now." As they approached the star system, the Victory and its fleet of human ships maintained a cautious pace. The fleet was not large, only a handful of ships, but they were advanced for human standards. Each ship a symbol of humanity's resilience and willpower. Max glanced at the crew as they worked, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of control panels. There was a tense quiet in the air. Every officer knew the risks they were taking by venturing this far into uncharted space. Then, without warning, the scanners began to beep rapidly. The readings shot off the charts, far stronger than anything they had ever seen. The massive energy signature was no longer a vague anomaly. It was real, and it was coming from a fleet. The human ships immediately went to red alert. "Admiral, we've got incoming," shouted Lieutenant Ramirez from the communication station. His voice cracked with fear. "A massive fleet, about 10 times the size of ours. It's the Galactic Empire." Max felt his heart skip a beat. The Galactic Empire. He had heard the stories, but he had never believed they would encounter them. They were known for their terrifying ships and their complete dominance over the galaxy. Humanity had never been in a direct confrontation with them. And now, it seemed, they were face to face with the most powerful force in the galaxy. "All hands, brace for impact," Max ordered. His voice was calm, but inside, he could feel a knot tightening in his stomach. The fleet of Empire ships appeared on their radar. They were enormous, towers of metal and energy, their weapons clearly visible, ready to strike. The Empire ships were much more advanced than anything humanity had ever built, their technology far beyond what the human fleet could match. The Empire didn't just have numbers, they had power. Unimaginable power. "Admiral," Commander Hayes said, her voice steady but laced with worry, "our chances of surviving this are slim. We can't fight them head-on. We need to think of a strategy." Max didn't look away from the display. His mind raced, but there was something in his chest, a flicker of defiance, a spark of something that had kept humanity alive for centuries. It was the same spirit that had driven humans to explore the unknown, to push forward against all odds. Max knew that the moment they showed weakness, it would be their end. "They'll expect us to run. They'll expect us to surrender," Max said quietly. "But that's not what we'll do. We will stand our ground." Elena looked at him in disbelief. "What are you saying, Admiral? We're facing an enemy far more powerful than we could have ever imagined." Max turned to her, his gaze hardening. "We're not running, Commander. We're going to make them take us seriously. We may be outgunned, but we have one thing they don't: the heart of humanity." His words hung in the air, heavy with conviction. Max knew the fleet was outnumbered, and they were not prepared for this fight. But what did he have to lose? They were already facing certain destruction if they did nothing. If they ran, they would be seen as weak. The Galactic Empire would wipe them out without a second thought. If they were to survive, they had to make their stand now. Max stood tall and turned to the communications officer. Send a message to the Empire fleet. Tell them that humanity does not kneel. We do not bow to anyone. The officer hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Aye, Admiral. Sending the message now. The tension in the room was unbearable as the message was sent. There was no turning back now. Max didn't know what the response would be, but he was ready to face whatever came next. They were going to show the Empire that humanity wouldn't be intimidated. This was their first real test, and Max was going to make sure they passed it. A bold declaration. The tension in the command center was unbearable. The human fleet was facing an unknown threat, but Admiral Max Davis had made his decision. There was no turning back now. The message had been sent, and the Empire was about to respond. As the message transmission ended, Max walked over to the large round table in the center of the room. His crew, officers and soldiers alike, were standing around, their faces pale with fear, but filled with determination. The Victory and its fleet of human ships were only a fraction of what the Galactic Empire could muster, but Max wasn't concerned about that. The humans were not going to run. They would stand firm. Commander Elena Hayes approached Max with a worried expression. Admiral, I understand what you're trying to do, but this is madness. The Empire will crush us. They have the firepower to wipe us off the map in seconds. Max turned to face her. He could see the fear in her eyes, but also the loyalty. She had always been by his side, ever since they first joined the military. Max trusted her judgment, but he knew the human spirit had to be tested. The Empire needed to know that humanity was not to be underestimated. Not now. Not ever. We may not have the power to destroy them, Max said, his voice calm but firm. But we have the strength to make them think twice. If we give in now, humanity will never have a chance to grow, to evolve. If we back down, they will take it as a sign of weakness. This is the moment we show them who we are. Elena sighed and nodded. Understood, Admiral. But you realize this could be the last stand for us. We need a plan. Max smiled, though there was no humor in it. I have a plan. But it's not about weapons or tactics. It's about our will to survive. Humanity has always thrived because of its drive, its defiance. We're going to show them that. Meanwhile, on the Empire fleet's flagship, the massive ships of the Galactic Empire moved gracefully through space, their dark metallic bodies glinting ominously under the distant stars. The fleet was a wall of power, each ship carrying enough firepower to annihilate entire planets. On the flagship, the leader of the Empire, Supreme Commander Yaren, sat in his war room, staring at a holographic map of the human fleet. These humans, they actually dared to challenge us, Yaren muttered, his voice cold and calculating. Their arrogance will be their undoing. A high-ranking officer, Commander Lyra, stood at attention beside him. Supreme Commander, we have received their message. They refuse to submit. Yaren's lips curled into a cruel smile. They refuse to submit. How amusing. They think they can stand against the might of the Galactic Empire. He turned to Lyra, his eyes narrowing. Prepare the fleet. It's time to show these humans why they should never challenge us. They are nothing compared to our power. We will teach them a lesson they will never forget. Back on the Victory, Max stood before his crew, ready to make his final speech before the inevitable battle. His eyes scanned the room, meeting the gaze of every officer and soldier. There was fear in the air, but it was accompanied by something else, something far more powerful. We are standing on the edge of history, Max said, his voice strong and clear. Today, we make a choice. We either back down and allow the Empire to crush us, or we fight. We show them that humanity is not a species to be ignored. We may be outmatched, but we are not weak. We are not afraid. He paused, letting his words sink in. The Empire thinks they can intimidate us. They think that we will bend to their will. But they're wrong. We are human. We are survivors. And we will never surrender. The crew remained silent for a moment. Then, one by one, the officers and soldiers began to nod, their faces hardening with resolve. They didn't know if they would win, but they knew that they had to try. This was their only chance. Alina stepped forward, her voice firm. "Admiral, we're with you. We fight for humanity." Max nodded, a small but proud smile crossing his face. "Then let's show them what we're made of." The clash of titans. The moment of truth had arrived. Max stood at the command center, watching as the Empire's fleet drew closer on the main display screen. It was impossible to ignore the sheer scale of the ships before them. Massive, dark, and imposing. Their weapon systems were active, glowing with a terrifying blue light, ready to unleash destruction. But even as they closed in, Max's gaze remained unwavering. The crew of the Victory had made their decision, and now they would stand their ground. "Admiral, the Empire is signaling us," Lieutenant Ramirez reported, his fingers flying over the console. "They're giving us one last chance to surrender. They're saying, if we submit, they'll spare us." Max's lip curled in disgust. "They think we'll give up that easily. That's not happening. Send them a reply. Tell them to prepare for a fight." The communications officer quickly typed the message, sending it directly to the Empire's flagship. The message was clear. Humanity does not bow. We stand and fight. As the fleet waited for the Empire's response, Max's mind raced. The odds were stacked against them. Even if they gave it everything they had, it wasn't enough. They were hopelessly outgunned. But there was something the Empire didn't understand. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for pride, for the right to exist on their own terms. "All ships, prepare for battle." Max's voice rang out, cutting through the tension in the command center. "We fight like we've never fought before. The Empire won't take us without a fight. Let's show them what we're made of." The crew cheered, a momentary spark of fire in their eyes. They knew what was coming, but they were ready. The battle begins. The moment the message was sent, the human fleet immediately went on the offensive. The first wave of energy blasts erupted from the Empire's ships, lighting up the dark expanse of space. Their weapons were powerful, far stronger than anything the humans had, but the Victory and its fleet had one advantage: speed. Max had ordered his fleet to maneuver quickly, evading the Empire's heavy blasts. The Victory weaved in and out of the incoming fire, her engines roaring with energy. The human ships, though smaller and weaker, were agile, and they fought back with everything they had. Missiles streaked through space, impacting the larger Empire ships, though their shields absorbed most of the damage. Still, each successful hit brought cheers from the crew. They were making their presence known. On the bridge, Max watched as the chaos unfolded before him. It was a dance of destruction, laser fire, explosions, and ships twisting and turning in an attempt to outmaneuver each other. But even as the humans fought back with everything they had, it was clear that the Empire was far superior in terms of firepower. The human fleet was taking heavy damage. Already, the Revenge, one of the smaller ships in their fleet, was engulfed in flames, its hull torn open by a devastating blast. "Admiral," Commander Hayes called from her station, urgency in her voice. "The Revenge is gone. We've lost them." Max's heart sank, but he couldn't let the crew see his fear. "Stay focused, Commander. We can't afford to panic." Desperation sets in. As the battle raged on, the humans began to realize just how much of a mismatch this was. The Empire's ships were too powerful, their shields impenetrable. For every shot the humans fired, they were met with retaliation that decimated their ranks. It was clear. The Empire wasn't just here to win. They were here to annihilate. The Victory had suffered damage. One of its engine ports had been disabled by a direct hit. The ship's movement slowed, and Max could feel the ship groaning under the strain. His hands tightened around the console. They couldn't keep this up for much longer. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the Fortitude. They're gone too," Lieutenant Ramirez reported, his voice barely audible over the din of the battle. "We're down to just a few ships." Max clenched his jaw. There was no way they could win this battle. But the message was clear. They had shown the Empire that humanity would not back down, no matter the odds. Even if they died today, they had done something the Empire hadn't expected. They had fought back. "Max," Elena said quietly from behind him, "I think it's time we consider retreating." Max turned to face her, his expression grim. "No, we don't retreat. We fight until we're no longer able to." But in his heart, he knew the truth. They were facing an enemy they could not defeat. The battle was over. The humans had fought with every ounce of strength they had, but now it was just a matter of time before the Empire wiped them out completely. The unseen ally. The human fleet was on the brink of collapse. Max stood rigid at the command center, his eyes fixed on the fading display of the Empire's relentless assault. The Victory was limping, barely holding together. The once proud fleet was now nothing more than a group of battered ships, trying to survive long enough to regroup. "Admiral," Elena said, her voice low, almost defeated, "we're running out of time. We're down to only 3 ships. We can't keep this up." Max's mind raced. He could feel the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. The entire fleet was depending on him, but it wasn't enough. The Empire's ships were simply too powerful. The loss of Revenge and Fortitude had sent shockwaves through the ranks, and the remaining crews were struggling to stay focused. Even if they managed to survive this onslaught, what would be left of them? The Empire had already proven that they could wipe out humanity in a single sweep. They would take Earth, enslave or exterminate the human race, and there would be nothing left. And yet, humanity hadn't backed down. That alone made Max proud. But just as he was preparing to order a retreat, hopeless as it was, something changed. A strange signal came through on the comms, faint at first, almost imperceptible. It was a series of static bursts, followed by a brief pattern of numbers and symbols. Max immediately looked to Lieutenant Ramirez, who was scanning the incoming transmission. "Sir," Ramirez said, eyes wide with confusion, "I don't recognize this signal. It's not from any of our ships, and it's not Empire frequency." Max's heart skipped a beat. Who could be sending them a signal? The Empire's ships were closing in fast. Any help now would be a miracle, if there was even anyone out there. "Can you trace it?" Max asked, his voice steady despite the urgency. Ramirez worked quickly, typing into his console. The pattern on the screen shifted, the signal becoming clearer as he isolated it from the background noise. Suddenly, the screen flashed, and a new image appeared. Max blinked in disbelief. The image was unlike anything they had ever seen. An enormous ship, sleek and shining, but clearly unlike any human or Empire vessel. It was almost organic in design, its curves flowing like a living creature. The ship's color seemed to change as it moved, blending with the stars around it. It didn't match the Empire's cold, metallic warships, nor did it resemble anything in human design. "What is that?" Elena whispered, awe and fear filling her voice. Max didn't know. It didn't matter that he couldn't recognize the ship. The fact was, this was an ally, or at least something willing to help. "Patch it through," Max ordered, his voice tense. The message. The image on the screen changed again, and a figure appeared, tall, humanoid, and cloaked in what looked like glowing armor. The face was obscured by a helmet, but the voice was unmistakable, calm, yet full of power. "This is the Ecliptic," the figure said. "We've been watching. Humanity is a species worth saving. We will assist you in your fight." Max's mind raced. Who were these people? How did they know about humanity's struggle? He wasn't sure, but there was no time for questions. They were offering help, and that was enough for now. "Who are you?" Max asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "How can you help us?" The figure's voice resonated through the command center. "We are an ancient race. We have watched your species for centuries. Your courage, your defiance, it has not gone unnoticed. Now, we will aid you. Prepare for reinforcements." The screen flickered and the image of the strange ship disappeared. Silence hung heavy in the air. Max, Alina, and the rest of the crew stared at the screen, processing what had just happened. "Did that just happen?" Alina finally asked, her voice shaky. Max could hardly believe it himself. But one thing was clear. They weren't alone anymore. The Empire's response. Back on the Empire flagship, Supreme Commander Yaren had been watching the human fleet with growing amusement. They had put up a good fight, but it was clear that they were weak. It was only a matter of time before they were wiped out completely. However, as he looked out over the battlefield, something caught his eye. A faint glimmer on the edge of the horizon. He scowled. The glimmer was growing brighter, more distinct. Then, as he focused, the faint glimmer turned into an enormous shape, something unlike anything he had ever seen. The Empire fleet, so used to crushing every opposition in their path, suddenly hesitated. What was this? Who was this new force? Before Yaren could issue orders, the strange ship appeared before the Empire fleet, close enough that the size of it could no longer be ignored. It moved with deadly precision, cutting through the battlefield with ease. Weapons flared, but the ship absorbed the Empire's blasts without flinching. The crew aboard the Victory watched in stunned silence as the unknown ship launched its counterattack. "Admiral, this ship, it's attacking the Empire fleet," Lieutenant Ramirez shouted. Max couldn't believe his eyes. The unknown ship's weapons were devastating. Bolts of energy shot from its hull, tearing apart the Empire's warships like paper. Even the most advanced Empire vessels crumbled before this new power. The Empire's fleet began to falter as the mysterious reinforcements took the fight to them. The human fleet, previously on the brink of defeat, suddenly found a renewed hope. The Empire had underestimated humanity once again. This was not just the fight for survival, it was the fight to prove that humanity would never be crushed. The tide turns. The battlefield was a chaotic mess of twisted wreckage, glowing debris, and a crackle of weaponry. The strange new ship, known as the Ecliptic, had shattered the Empire's momentum. Its advanced weapons were tearing through the Empire's warships, leaving them crumpled and lifeless. What had once been a hopeless fight for humanity had transformed into a desperate retreat for the Empire. Max stood on the command deck, his eyes locked on the view screen as the Ecliptic effortlessly decimated the remaining Empire ships. His pulse was racing. The fight had shifted, but the uncertainty still hung in the air. Who were these new allies? What was their ultimate goal? Was this a one-time intervention, or would they leave once the battle was over? "Admiral, the Empire is retreating," Lieutenant Ramirez reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're pulling back, but there are signs of internal chaos on their ships. It looks like they're preparing to flee." Max watched as the Empire's flagship began to retreat, its enormous engines firing up. The remaining ships followed suit, slowly turning and withdrawing from the battlefront. The humans had done it. Against all odds, they had held their ground, and now the Empire was forced to retreat. But the victory didn't feel real. Not yet. They had lost so much in this battle. So many ships, so many lives. Humanity had fought bravely, but this was far from over. The Empire would regroup, and when they did, they would return. Max knew that the war was far from won. "Get me a secure line to the Ecliptic," Max ordered. "We need to talk." The truth revealed. The comm screen flickered to life once again, and the same armored figure from earlier appeared. This time, Max's questions were more direct. "We owe you everything," Max said, his voice heavy with gratitude and wariness. "You saved us. But we need answers. Who are you? Why are you helping us?" The figure on the screen didn't hesitate. "We are an ancient race, known as the Curators. We have watched your species for millennia. We have seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and we have judged many races by their worth. Humanity has earned our respect. Max's brow furrowed. Respect. Why now? Why help us at all? The curator's voice remained calm. Your species has been underestimated by the Empire, just as you've been underestimated by many others. We do not tolerate oppression. The Empire's desire for control and dominance is something we cannot allow to go unchallenged. Humanity's spirit has proven to be strong, stronger than most. That is why we are here. Max's eyes narrowed. You're saying this is about more than just helping us survive. There's something bigger going on. The figure nodded. Yes, the Empire's reign has spread across the galaxy unchecked for too long. But it has reached a tipping point. The time has come for them to face an adversary who will not bow to them. And humanity is the key. Max's mind raced. He had known there was something more to this. The curators had not intervened just to save a struggling species. They had an agenda of their own. And now, it seemed that humanity was being pulled into something much larger than a simple war for survival. The dangers ahead. Admiral. Elena called out from across the room, her voice tense. The ecliptic. It's not just helping us fight. It's sending something. Something to Earth. Max spun around. What do you mean, sending something? Elena quickly pulled up a new set of data on the screen. A signal, similar to the one that had arrived before, was now emanating from the ecliptic toward Earth. It was encrypted, too complex for any normal human technology to understand. But the destination was clear. Earth. Whatever the curators were planning, it was going to affect the home planet of humanity. Can we stop it? Max asked, his voice tight with concern. Elena shook her head. We don't even know what it is, Admiral. But it's coming from the curator ship. It's not just a message, it's something more. Max thought for a moment. The humans were at a crossroads. On one hand, they had an ally, an unexpected and powerful force that could change the course of the war. On the other, the arrival of this mysterious signal could mean the start of something much more dangerous. The curators had their own goals that might not align with humanity's best interests. Max exhaled slowly. Keep monitoring it. We need to know what's coming. The Empire's last stand. Back aboard the Empire flagship, Supreme Commander Yeren was seething. The retreat had not gone as planned. He had lost nearly half his fleet, and now he was facing an unknown enemy, one that had helped the humans in ways that were incomprehensible. Yeren knew the Empire could not leave this situation unchecked. Humanity had to be crushed. The curators, whoever they were, had interfered in something that had been deemed impossible. But that wouldn't stand. The Empire would return, and they would wipe out these newfound threats. Prepare the fleet for counterattack, Yeren ordered, his voice cold and determined. We'll show them what happens when they think they've won. The signal's secret. Max paced nervously around the command center. His eyes constantly flicked to the screens, where the encrypted signal from the ecliptic was still blinking, its meaning unclear. The strange energy that had begun emanating from the curator ship had shifted something in the air. The humans had been handed an unexpected lifeline, but there was no guarantee that this new alliance would be as beneficial as it seemed. Admiral, Elena said, breaking Max's train of thought. We've intercepted some of the signal. It's strange. It's not just data. It's something else. Something encoded inside the signal itself. Max looked at Elena. What do you mean? Can we decode it? Elena hesitated. We're trying, but it's far beyond anything we've seen before. There's a level of complexity here that we just don't have the technology to crack. At least not yet. Max's frustration grew. The ecliptic had helped them turn the tide of battle, but now they were in uncharted waters. They were relying on their mysterious new allies to show them the way. But how much control did the curators really have over the situation? And how much control did humanity have in return? We need to understand what's going on, Max said, gripping the back of a chair. "We can't just sit here waiting for answers. Whatever this signal is, it could change everything, or it could be our downfall." As the crew worked tirelessly to decode the signal, Max couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Empire would be regrouping, and the battle was far from over. They needed to prepare for what was coming next, whatever it was. On Earth, the unknown arrives. Far below the battle in space on Earth, the effects of the strange signal were already beginning to ripple through humanity. Thousands of communications networks around the world began to glitch, broadcasting a strange message in patterns that nobody could understand. The signal's arrival seemed to have a ripple effect on the planet's technology, causing minor disruptions but leaving the world on edge. In a small control room, a team of scientists watched as the data streams they had been monitoring suddenly took a strange turn. What had started as a routine scientific analysis had now become something far more urgent. "Sir," one of the scientists said, his voice tinged with panic. "Something's happening. The signal is reaching Earth. It's interacting with our systems. We don't know how, but it's starting to control things." The team looked at each other in disbelief. How could a foreign signal, originating from the depths of space, be affecting their systems on Earth? How was this even possible? Before they could analyze further, a new alert flashed across their screens. The signal is activating dormant systems, ancient systems buried beneath the surface. They're coming online. The dormant weapon. The shock of the situation hit Max like a tidal wave. Earth's response to the signal had taken a sudden, dangerous turn. The signal wasn't just affecting communications, it was awakening something much more sinister. "Admiral, you need to see this," Alina called out from her station. She quickly patched Max into a secure connection with the Earth-based research team. On the screen, the scientist spoke in a rushed, panicked voice. "We've just discovered that this signal is triggering ancient automated systems. These systems, they were buried long ago by your own governments. We don't know how, but the signal is awakening them. We think they might be weapons, dangerous weapons." Max's heart raced. Weapons. Humanity had buried something dangerous on Earth. He had no idea what they were talking about. He turned to Alina, his voice strained. "How could Earth have weapons like that and not know about it?" "We don't know, Admiral," Alina replied, her voice trembling. "This signal seems to be unlocking things that were never meant to be found." Max's mind raced. What could this signal be? And why had the curators chosen now to awaken whatever these weapons were? It wasn't just a call for help. It was leading to something far more complicated and possibly catastrophic. Humanity could be playing right into the hands of powers they couldn't even comprehend. The curators' silence. Max returned his attention to the comm screen, waiting for the curators to explain themselves. But the response he received wasn't what he expected. The figure in the glowing armor appeared again, but this time, there was a noticeable distance in their tone. "We have not revealed all, Admiral," the curator said, their voice cold. "There is more at stake here than you realize. What you now face on Earth is the result of the signal. It was always part of the plan." Max's stomach turned. "Part of the plan? You knew this would happen?" The curator nodded slowly. "We knew the signal would activate certain systems. They are not weapons in the way you think. They are artifacts, left over from a war fought long ago. You will need them. The Empire will return. And when they do, you will need every advantage you can get." Max felt his breath catch in his throat. "You're telling me you sent us into this? That this was part of your plan all along?" The curator didn't answer directly. Instead, they spoke with an air of finality. "Prepare yourself, Admiral. The Empire is regrouping. Your true test is about to begin. The Empire's return." Max's gaze shifted to the distant stars as he processed the weight of the curator's words. The Empire wasn't just retreating. They were preparing for something far worse. The signal had already sent ripples through Earth, awakening an ancient threat. Now, Humanity was facing its greatest challenge yet. The Empire had regrouped, and this time, they were bringing their full force to bear. The battle for Earth, the last stand for humanity's survival, was about to take a turn that nobody could predict. The final stand. The battle lines had been drawn, and humanity stood at the precipice of destruction. The Empire's forces had regrouped, stronger and more determined than ever before. The mysterious signal from the ecliptic had awoken long-dormant systems on Earth, systems that the curators claimed would help humanity in the fight ahead. But Max, still struggling to grasp the true extent of the curators' intentions, couldn't shake the feeling that they were being manipulated. Humanity had earned a powerful ally, but at what cost? Max stood at the command center, his eyes scanning the fleet of human ships that now gathered around Earth. The Empire's fleet was already in orbit, their massive warships casting ominous shadows over the planet below. The battle that would determine humanity's fate was about to begin. Admiral. Elena's voice broke through his thoughts. The Empire is moving in. Their fleet is advancing toward Earth. We estimate they'll be within firing range in a few hours. Max exhaled sharply, his hand tightening around the edge of his console. Are the new systems operational? Elena nodded. Some are, but we're still working on others. Whatever these systems are, they're ancient, alien technology that we're just beginning to understand. But the weapons, Admiral, they're powerful. If we can control them, we might stand a chance. Max looked out the viewport at the stars. He could see the flickering lights of the Empire's fleet, approaching with devastating speed. They had no choice but to use whatever they had at their disposal. But there was one thing Max couldn't ignore, the uncertainty that loomed over them all. Had the curators truly done this to help humanity, or were they playing a much bigger game? The weapons unleashed. The first wave of the Empire's assault came without warning. The massive warships launched their first salvo of devastating energy blasts toward Earth. Max watched, his heart pounding, as the first explosions lit up the sky. It was happening. The Empire was starting their final push. Return fire, Max shouted. Target their lead ship. All batteries. Now. The human fleet retaliated, unleashing a barrage of energy missiles and weapons fire. But despite their best efforts, the Empire's superior technology easily deflected their attacks. The human ships, though brave, were being outmatched, outgunned, and outclassed. The Empire was pushing forward, and humanity's defenses were crumbling. But just as all seemed lost, a strange hum filled the air, a low, vibrating sound that seemed to come from all around. Max's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. The dormant systems, those mysterious weapons hidden beneath Earth's surface, were activating. Admiral, Elena said, her voice full of awe. The weapons, they're powering up. The ancient systems are coming online. Max's gaze snapped to the tactical screen, where a massive pulse of energy erupted from the surface of Earth. The ground trembled as a burst of concentrated energy shot upward, aimed directly at the Empire's approaching ships. The first blast hit an Empire destroyer, and the result was immediate. The ship cracked open like a fragile shell, its hull torn apart by the sheer force of the energy. The fleet faltered for a moment as they saw the overwhelming power humanity now possessed. That's it, Max shouted, feeling a surge of hope. Hit them hard. We have the upper hand. Now's our chance. The human fleet pushed forward with renewed determination, pouring everything they had into the Empire's forces, and this time, the Empire's ships were struggling to defend themselves. But then, just as victory seemed within reach, Max's comm unit crackled to life. It was the curator again. Admiral, we have underestimated the scale of your resistance. You have proven your strength. However, the Empire's forces are far from finished. This war is far from over. Max's heart sank. The curator's words were clear. This battle was only a small part of a much larger conflict. Then what's next? Max demanded. What do we need to do to finish this once and for all? The curator paused. You must now prepare for the final confrontation. The Empire's true strength lies not in their ships or weapons, but in their leaders. The Supreme Commander is waiting for you. Max felt a chill run down his spine. You mean, a leader is coming here? Yes, the curator replied. And he is unlike any enemy you faced before. But if you are to truly defeat the Empire, you will have to face him, head-on. The final confrontation. As Max processed the curator's message, he turned back to the view of the battlefield. The human fleet was pushing back the Empire, but there was no telling how long they could hold out. And now, with the threat of the Empire's leader looming, the stakes were higher than ever. Max issued orders to prepare the fleet for the final battle. He knew that the only way to secure humanity's survival was to confront the leader of the Empire directly. The human ships were ready to fight, but it would be no easy task. Prepared to engage the Supreme Commander's flagship, Max said, his voice steady but filled with determination. This is it, people. We fight to win. The Empire's true leader. As Max led the charge toward the Empire's flagship, his mind raced. The curators had warned him about the Supreme Commander, but they had given him little to go on. What made this leader so dangerous? Was this the true test of humanity's resolve? The massive flagship loomed before them, its engines glowing ominously. It was clear that the Empire's leader had not only survived the initial wave of attacks, but was now preparing for something far worse. As the human ships closed in on the flagship, Max knew the final showdown was upon them.